Good afternoon to one and all present here. It's a glad welcome we bring to you this day, filled with desires, hopes, dreams we all share. It's my honor and privilege in welcoming you all for a one-day international workshop on conceptualization of business analytics. Good things come to people who wait, but better things come to those who go out and get them. I'd like to welcome one such person, our distinguished chief guest, Ms. Sangeetha Rahul, Business Analyst, HCL, Sydney, Australia. Welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to welcome our beloved Principal and Secretary, Dr. B.L. Shivakumar sir, and our Vice Principal, Dr. Deena, who have encouraged and motivated us in achieving more. Try not to become a person of success, but rather try to become a person of value. Next, I'd like to welcome one such person who has molded the students with his vast knowledge and expertise for the past 3 decades. It's none other than our beloved Dr. J. Shanmugananda Vadivel sir, Dean, Students Affairs, Sri Ramakrishna College of Arts and Science. Welcome you, sir. If your action inspires others to dream more, to learn more, and to do more, you are a leader. With this, I would like to welcome one such person, Dr. B. Nirmala Devi, Associate Professor and Head, Department of BCom and MCom, Sri Ramakrishna College of Arts and Science, who is a pillar of support standing behind all the laurels achieved by our department. Welcome you, ma'am. I would like to welcome faculty members from various institutions around the globe, students from various colleges, faculty members of our own institution, and students of BCom and MCom of Sri Ramakrishna College of Arts and Science, research scholars, and industrial experts who have joined today's session and made this event a grand success. Once again, I would like to welcome one and all present here for this gracious occasion. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Every thought you produce, anything you say, any action you do, it bears your signature. I would like to now call upon Dr. V. Nirmala Devi, Head, Department of BCom and MCom of Sri Ramakrishna College of Arts and Science, to welcome the chief guest.
Good afternoon to all. In today's digital world, business analytics is a powerful tool across industries. Nowadays, organizations are generating vast amount of data, which in turn has heightened the need of professionals who know how to interpret and analyze that information. It combines the fields of management, business, and computer science. The analytical part involves an understanding of data, statistics, and computer science. This combination of fields allows business analysts to bridge the gap between management and technology. Effective communication and problem solving are also elements of business analytics to translate insights from data to information that is easily communicated to executives. In the last decade, big data, cloud computing, advanced analytics, and automation have become integral part of all business operations across the globe. Today's business analytics has become a multi-have capacity for organizations across industries and job maker for analytics expert like scientists, data engineers, data analysts, visualization experts, etc. The future of business analytics is making use of cognitive analytics, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, which enables technologies to have human-like intelligence to make decisions and optimize end-to-end operation and processes while requiring very low to zero manual inputs or intervention. Here we have right person to share her vast experience and enlighten us in the area of conceptualization of business analytics. I feel immense joy in introducing our today's chief guest, Ms. Sangeetha Rahul, business analyst, Hindustan Computers Limited, Sydney, Australia, who has more than 8 years of experience in transit, telecom, finance, energy and automobile domains, and currently working as a business analyst with HCL for the client Sydney Trains. She has also worked as a project manager for the clients Telstra, built a great rapport with stakeholders to ensure continuous collaboration with the client and STEM team. Having experience in writing business requirements, features, user stories, and acceptance criteria. She is the recipient of Orient Award in 2014 for the category Putting Clients First and also received Manager's Choice Award twice in 2015 for taking up challenging projects to perform system testing. Thank you, ma'am, for accepting our invitation in your busy schedule. Once again, I welcome you all for this one-day workshop.
Thanks, ma'am. Sangeetha ma'am, now the session is yours.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'd like to start off by thanking all the organizers of this particular webinar. And thank you to everyone who's attending this webinar. And I know that it's a Friday afternoon for most of you who are attending this session. And all of you would like to get back to the things that you like to do and start off your weekend. So taking that as my requirements for this particular webinar, I plan to present this webinar in an informative, short, and engaging session. So let me start the sharing, and please let me know if you're able to see my screen. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, sure. Thanks. So as part of today's webinar, I'm going to talk all of you through the history of business analytics. What is business analytics? The benefits of business analytics, business analysis processes, and the types of business analytics. And there are basically 4 different types, which are descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, and prescriptive. And finally, I'm going to conclude with a use case. So the history of business analytics. In the early 1900s, during the IT evolution, there was a rapid increase in the use of IT in business. This led to a lot of advantages. Some of them are getting better results, implementing new technology, and we had experts who were experts in their field who could create a relevant product. Even though we had all of these advantages, it led to certain problems. And they didn't actually have excellent experience in planning tasks ahead. And neither did they know why a software was being created, what was the relevant use, who's the target audience. And it was also a challenge to have an effective communication between the business users and the programmers. Programmers are basically the people who code and deliver the product. So you can imagine, in a world where there's so many challenges, do you really think that the customers who are actually going to be using that product will be happy? They weren't. And as a result, the business users had to spend a lot of money on rewrites, updates, maintenance, and resolving software defects. In order to address this issue, a set of technical people known as system analysts were introduced. They could actually develop the product and they had the technical outlook for the products. But they did not have business acumen, and neither did they know why the system was being produced. So we still had that gap between business users and the people who were actually creating the code. And in order to bridge that gap, business analysts were introduced. They did not develop the products, but they knew their business. They knew what to do with the software, how to bring it into the market, and what was the need for the system and who would be using it. So let's talk about what is business analytics. According to the International Institute of Business Analysis, it is the practice of enabling change in an enterprise by defining needs and recommending solutions that deliver value to the stakeholders. So I just want to tell you a bit more on what each of these aspects are. So basically, all we are saying is that business analytics is just a practice, and it helps to enable change in an enterprise. An enterprise is just an organization. By what does it do? I mean, it basically defines the needs and it recommends the solutions that deliver the value to the stakeholders. let's understand this further with the help of a use case. So let us consider that Steve is running a supermarket. And the problem is that he has a lot of products that utilize a lot of space, but they're not selling enough to make profit. And Steve talks to Andrew, who's a business analyst. And Andrew tells Steve that he has understood his problem and he recommends, would you like to install a shelving inventory software to assist you? And Steve likes the idea. So what does Andrew do as a business analyst? He has to think through all the data he has, and he has to execute certain steps to realize and document the proposed solution. So the inputs he's going to take in this case would probably be something like all the previous year's sales data, all the space and shelving capacity data, and all the applicable softwares available in the market. So he'll make use of all of this data and he'll produce certain outcomes. What are the outcomes? Basically, he's going to create the use cases for each business condition. Then he's going to perform the feasibility study, and then he's going to fine-tune those requirements. And finally, he's going to document it and present the solution to Steve, who's the stakeholder in this situation. So I just want to explain a bit more on what's a use case, what are business conditions, and what are feasibility studies. So basically, use case is the scenario which tells you that when given a certain situation, when such a thing happens, what would be the outcome? So basically, it's like a given when then scenario. And they'll write it in that manner. And then finally, they'll fine tune it based on what is possible to deliver and what is not. So that is where the feasibility study comes in. And finally, they'll document it. And the documentation could be in the form of a functional requirement specification document. It could be just a plain business specification document. And that is basically, and this particular document will capture all the scopes, the risks, the constraints, and as well as how it's going to be developed and the business use cases for each feature of the product. Now, once Andrew gets all of the documentation done, he has to present this to Steve. In this use case, he says that the new software would have all of these features. It'll get the sales data of each day. Then it'll get all the current spacing and shelving capacity. And finally, it'll recommend various arrangements to make the space utilization more profitable. And Steve says, this is exactly what I would need. Thanks. Please send me all the details and let us make this happen. Now, I hope from that use case, you're able to understand the kind of work a business analyst does. To further understand it, let's look through all the phases of a product development and what the role of a business analyst is for each phase. So the initial phase of a project starts with gathering the information. So obviously, you cannot work on a project until you know what are the variables, what are we trying to look at. So basically, we're going to first figure out what's the requirements. And then we'll move on to discovering the business objectives. So we're going to tell like this, basically, this is the problem statement where using the problem statement, we decide on, like the business analyst decides on what has to be done for this particular project. And then they'll refine it, and then they'll define the scope of the project. Then they'll create a business analysis plan. That is, they'll decide on what has to be, how we're going to do the analysis, and they'll also document the analysis, the scope, the use cases, the risks, the constraints. And then the developer takes this as an input to define the detailed requirements. Obviously, since the business analyst knows the requirement, they'll have to work in collaboration in order to define the detailed requirements. And then the next phase is implementation. So this is the phase where all the products are developed and tested and then redeveloped. There's so many iterations that goes on there. And during this phase, the business analyst verifies, especially during the testing phase, whether it's actually working according to what the business user needs. Because there are different viewpoints while analyzing a software. And a business analyst actually looks at things from the user's perspective. Whereas a tester or a developer will look at the product in their level. They might not look at the entire picture, and that's where the business analysts come in. And finally, the client sees the value of the project, and the business analyst takes the feedback from the client, and then based on the suggestions or enhancements or feedback, he or she takes that as an input for the next project. I hope the phases of the business analysis is clear. Is there any doubts in this section? I'm happy to clear it now. Okay, I'm moving on to the next one. So following all of these slides, what does business analytics help us with? It basically helps us doing 4 things. It helps us to generate effective solutions. It provides the required documentation, helps us in assigning sufficient resources and achieving greater efficiency. Let's talk about each of these points. First one is generating effective solutions. Obviously, when you have all the parameters and you know what the client wants, you can definitely deliver on what they require. And that is why we say that we're going to generate effective solutions. Then providing the required documentation. As I mentioned clearly, we need to document what are the requirements in a detailed manner so that there's no confusion. And we have to get the sign off from the business before any work on that can get started. In this manner, we can ensure that we have covered the adequate amounts of requirement in order to deliver this product. The third is assigning sufficient resources. Obviously, once we've got the sign off from the client, we know the amount of work involved in that particular project because the FRS will detail out what's the work involved. That is a functional requirement specification document. And this could be used to estimate the amount of resources that will be used for this particular project. And then finally, achieving greater efficiency. Obviously, when everything works as a well-oiled machine, in this case, the whole project team, the whole product cycle is going to be efficient. Moving on to the type of business analytics. So business analytics can be divided into 4 broad categories, depending on what is being analyzed or conveyed when it is occurring. So there are basically 4 different categories in business analytics. That is the descriptive analytics, the diagnostic analytics, the predictive analytics, and the prescriptive analytics. And to give you a brief idea of what it is, the descriptive analytics. The descriptive analytics basically talks about what happened. Excuse me, I'm hearing some noise in the background. Can you please mute? So moving on. Descriptive analytics, basically it deals with what happened The diagnostic analytics deals with why did it happen. The predictive analytics deals with what will happen next. And the prescriptive analytics deals with what should we do. Let's dive a little bit deeper into what each of these categories are. So the first thing is the descriptive analytics. So descriptive analytics, as I mentioned, it deals with what happened in the past or what is happening now. It's one of the most basic and most used methods and concentrates on reporting actual data. Understanding what is happening by examining past data. Some of the tools which are used to do the descriptive analytics are MS Access, Tableau, and Power BI. So descriptive analytics can again be further subdivided into 4 subcategories. By means of what is being used to evaluate the data. So the 4 subcategories are measures of frequency, measures of central tendency, measures of dispersion, and measures of position. Let's look a little bit further into what each of these subcategories represent. Measures of frequency. Measures of frequency basically defines how frequently a certain event or response has occurred, and it can be shown as a count or a percentage. Let us consider an example where a survey was taken for around 1,000 people, and they were asked about what their favorite flavor of ice cream was. A list of 1,000 responses would be very difficult to consume, but the data can be made much more accessible by measuring how many times a certain flavor was selected, such as this particular graph. As you can see, it's clearly visible that in this case, the vanilla flavor was the most preferred flavor of ice cream. Now, moving on to the measures of central tendency. Measures of central tendency deals with determining the central or the average event or response. And it can be shown using mathematical equations to derive the average response. For example, let us consider that a group of 7 people were asked how many countries they have been to in the last 10 years to give the group an appropriate travel offer. A list of 7 responses would be pretty vague and it can't be used as it is. So instead, we can find the average response and give a suitable travel offer. I'm sure most of you on this call know how to calculate the mean, median, and mode. So this is where it can be used. And it can be used to determine what's the average. And that can be used in order to give a suitable travel offer. Measures of dispersion. Measures of dispersion is when we are analyzing data distributed across a different range. So when there is a range of possibilities, it's not easy to use a measure of central tendency. And that's when we move on to measures of dispersion. So if you want to consider a group of 5 students, and in order to analyze the number of placements that the students obtained, we can use the standard mean deviation computation as shown. Then measures of position. It involves identifying the position of one event in response or relation to another. Consider that there were 20 students in a class. If we wanted to find the distribution of marks for a subject, we can make use of percentiles as shown. I'm sure a lot of people keep saying, yeah, I'm a first rank holder or I'm a second rank holder. So all that basically comes in by using measures of position. Then moving on to the second type of analytics, which is called the diagnostic analytics. This particular analytics deals with why did something happen? So the answer to that question will actually provide the input for a diagnostic analytics. So Using diagnostic tools, it will allow you to get the most out of it by translating your complex data into visualizations and insights that everyone can take advantage of. Some of the tools and languages used for diagnostic analytics are MS Access, Tableau, Power BI, Python, and R. Some of the techniques used for this are basically data discovery, drill down, data mining, and correlations. Data discovery is the process of asking the right questions to get the right data. And drilling down is the process of fine-tuning the data based on a certain aspect. Data mining is an automated process used to get information from a massive set of raw data. Whereas correlations are finding consistent correlations in your data that can help you pinpoint the parameters for the investigation. The third analytics technique is a predictive analytics. And this will basically tell you what will happen. So basically, you're trying to predict the possible outcomes using statistical models and machine learning techniques. By leveraging mined data, historical figures, and statistics, predictive analytics uses raw and up-to-date data to peer into a future scenario. Tools and languages that are used in order to do predictive analytics are R, Python, Data Robot, RapidMiner, and SAS. Prescriptive analytics. What should we do in the future? This employs a more technological approach, and it utilizes complicated mathematical algorithms, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, the what and why of a potential future outcome. And it helps companies to see multiple potential options in its future and their respective potential outcomes. So this basically tells what should we do in the future is basically it's used to figure out how to adapt to the changing environment. And once the company has the vision of what would happen and how we can integrate it into our product, that analytics is what prescriptive analytics is about. Now, I know all of these seem very technical. To simplify it, let's look at the same use case as before, and I'll explain what each of these analytics technique can be, which of these analytics techniques can be used in that particular use case. So I know you remember the same characters. We've got Steve, the supermarket owner, and Andrew, who's a business analyst. And the initial problem statement was that Steve has a lot of products that utilizes a lot of space, but they're not selling enough to make profit. And Andrew says that he has understood the problem and he suggests, would you like to install a shelving inventory software to assist you? So the first analytic technique was the descriptive analytics in the use case. So what was the descriptive analytics? We mentioned that descriptive analytics is basically answering the question of what happened in the past. So in this case, obviously, we'll have to look at the past sales information, the past shelving information, and the current software. And all of these information is used in order to do descriptive analytics. And this will give the categorized data such as the maximum and minimum sold products, the maximum and minimum space occupying products, and software that is reliable and customizable. Moving on to the next analytics. But please bear in mind, not all analytics have got to be used by developing a product, but I'm just using this as an example to detail out what and how we're going to go about doing analytics. So diagnostic analytics, as I mentioned, it was why it basically answers the question of why it happened in the past. The inputs to this is basically the categorized data, which was the output of the previous analytic technique. which is the maximum and minimum sold products, the maximum and minimum space occupying products, the software that is reliable and customizable. And after performing diagnostic analytics, we get mined data. Data which gives more clarity on why these products were the maximum and minimum sold, why the products occupied maximum and minimum space, why would these be the top softwares to use. Now moving on to the third analytics technique, which is the predictive analytics. So predictive analytics basically deals with what are the possible future outcomes. And we use various statistical models, simulation, and machine learning techniques in order to do predictive analytics. So again, the output of the previous analytics is used for the predictive analytics, that is the categorized and the mined data. So we've got all the products, the maximum and minimum products, and we've also got the answer to why. So all of these are taken in, and we predict future outcomes using the predictive analytics. So in this case, it will be what should be kept where for effective utilization of space per product sold. Moving on to the final prescriptive analytics in the use case. So basically prescriptive analytics, as I mentioned, it deals with detailing out what do we do in the future. And due to the dynamic nature of the world, it's always modeled based on the past concrete data, and it should also be dynamically modifiable. So we know that we got these as a future outcome as part of the predictive analytics. So that is basically taken as the input into the prescriptive analytics techniques. And using that, we should derive a sustainable solution. And in this case, it is to adapt to any changing variables in the shop and provide the optimum shelving report every week. So basically, adapting to any changing variable means any parameter in the shop. If it changes, we are going to provide an optimum shelving report every week so that the customer, in this case, Steve, will be able to utilize that and change his shelving in the supermarket. Thank you.
Thank
Hello.
you, ma'am. That was a mind-blowing session. Participants, if you have any queries, you can raise to ma'am now. Participants, if you have any queries, you can raise.
I think everyone just wants to get back to their Friday evenings.
So shall we conclude, ma'am? I think no one have any queries here. There is a question from Lavanya. How can we apply? Once again, ma'am.
Sure.
How can we apply analytics in HR?
Hi, Lavanya. Thanks for asking that question. So, as I clearly mentioned, for any kind of business analytics, basically you have to understand what the requirement is. So, if you're taking an HR, it could be a recruitment process, it could be a policy that they want to implement. So, obviously, you'd have to figure out what the requirement is. And based on that, you'd have to figure out how it can be effective, because HR deals with human resources. So it's got to be communicated to the people or the employees in the company. So only if you understand what's the purpose behind it and who are the target audience, you can provide a proper solution. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, ma'am.
No worries.
Others, if you want to raise queries, you can ask ma'am now.
I think somebody has raised their hand. Yes, Kevin. Would you like to ask something?
Yes, ma'am. Shall we conclude now? Yes, we have a question again from Lavanya, ma'am. Can you please suggest any course to apply? Analytics in HR.
I'm not sure of a course to apply analytics in HR because I've not worked with HR per se, but I'm sure there are a lot of tools that's available in the market, which actually provides you visual representation. And once you do know how to utilize tools such as Tableau or Power BI, it could help you do all these analytics in a very visual and user-friendly way.
Thank you, ma'am. We have another question from Kumaresan, sir. The career opportunities for commerce graduates in the field of business analytics.
Sure. Thanks for that question, Mr. Kumareshan. So basically, I'd say that every single background has its own benefits, because I know as a commerce, I don't have a commerce background. I'm a BTech graduate, but as a commerce graduate, I'm sure you've dealt with all kinds of mathematical computations, equations, and all those literally can be used, especially in a business analyst. If you're going into a finance domain, that is like banking, or you go for any insurance company, all those places will definitely appreciate having on a commerce student or a commerce graduate for it, because the wealth of information that a commerce student would have would be way more than what we'd have in that field.
We have another two questions. The scope for business analytics, ma'am.
So I know there's a lot of artificial intelligence going on, and there's so many things people want to replace with machine. But business analytics is a field which really can't be replaced by a machine, because there's so many variables, and until somebody actually talks to the client, gets to the root of what is required, and then delivers it, it's very tough. And that's why I think business analytics would be something that would always be evergreen.
And another question, ma'am. So they are asking for some of the core competencies of a business analyst.
So some of the core competencies are basically we call them as domains basically, and it's basically whatever we are working on. So I'm currently working for a transport industry. So we've got transport, we've got banking, we've got finance. Finance and banking is the same, but yeah, finance. We've got telecom, which is a very large domain, and we've also got things like automobile. So any industry you take, basically, those are all competencies for business analytics. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, ma'am.
No worries.
Any other queries from participants? Is it necessary to have a business analyst in an organization?
I would say yes. Obviously, I am a business analyst, so I'd always say yes. And there are cases, if you recollect what I said in the webinar, business analysts are basically people who actually bridge the gap. And without a business analyst, basically the people in the project are going to suffer, because they would literally have to go through various iterations because they've just not got what the business actually wants. And that's where business analysts play a big role. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, ma'am. We have another question, ma'am. What should we take up that is the course after degree to become an analyst, business analyst?
There is no course per se that I'd say, you need a business analyst degree to do it and stuff. It's all comes from experience. I mean, I didn't have a commerce background or a business analyst background or anything. I was a BTech in computer science. I started my career as a Java developer, moved on to doing a middleware development, and then moved on to testing. And then finally, I landed up in business analytics. IT is such a wonderful field where, you just have to find your footing, and and just explore all the opportunities basically that comes your way, and it'll lead you somewhere. Yes, I'm sure there's a lot of graduation courses for business analytics and all that, but I feel it's building your profile. You have to build it up and figure out.
Thank you, ma'am.
No worries.
Any more queries?
So I'm seeing a query from Satish. What is the significance of reporting in business analysis? So reporting is an important parameter, because anything that you do, if you don't report it, basically it's like a well-kept secret. Nobody else gets to know. So it's very critical, whether you're a business analyst, whether you're a developer, whether you're a tester, whether you're a project manager. it's critical that reporting always plays a vital role, and that reporting is what brings all the teams together so that everybody is on the same page. So that's basically the significance of it.
Ma'am, we have another two questions.
Mhm.
What are the industry and professional standards in business analyst?
I'm sure you. It's like it's a huge list. It's something that's available on business analyst website, so I'm sure you'll be able to search on that. I can't really list it out here. I'm sorry, Satish. Uh, and yeah, what is the best programming language, R or Python? We can't really say that one language is better than the other. Uh, every programming language has its own set of tools and everything, and um, I would never, compare two languages ever, because each language can be used. Any language can be used to develop any product. It's just a matter of taste, I should say, as to which one would you prefer to use, or what is already being used in that current project. Good question. Is business analytics a lucrative job? Okay. I guess it depends on, with every field or any industry, it depends on where you are, like which company you're placed in, how many years of experience you've had. So all of that plays a factor. And I would agree, because it 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 does offer a lot, but more than that, I would say don't go there for the money. Go there for the experience. Because if you can become a good business analyst, you're actually making a change in this world by helping to deliver something that's valuable. I think the questions have stopped.
So thank you, ma'am. Let us conclude now. Gratitude is the fairest blossom which springs from the soul. Now, I would like to call upon Dr. P. Kavipriya, Assistant Professor, Department of BCom and MCom of Sri Ramakrishna College of Arts and Science, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon to one and all present here. That's everything you need to know about the importance of business analytics in the digital age. Hopefully, by now you have a clearer understanding of how this field is transforming businesses across the globe. With the advancement in technology, this field is only going to get bigger, better, and provide more opportunities for the aspirant. It's my honor and privilege in proposing the vote of thanks for this gracious occasion. Young minds are like a sponge, and they are looking for the right input to soak it in. We cannot think of a person more suitable to this other than Ms. Sangeetha Rahul, Hindustan Computers Limited, Sydney, Australia. I would like to extend our wholehearted thanks to you, ma'am, for accepting our request and gracing this occasion. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, ma'am. When it comes to molding the young mind, there is no one better than these people. I would like to thank our beloved principal, Dr. B.L. Shivakumar, Vice Principal, Deena,
and Dean Dr. Shanmuhananda Vadivel, who are there always with us in all our deeds. Great things happen when there is a gathering of great minds. It would not be correct if I failed to thank one such mind, the convener of today's program, Dr. Nirmala Devi, Associate Professor and Head, Department of BCom and MCom, for her inspiration and support. I thank you, ma'am. My special thanks to our today's program coordinator, Dr. Kavita, Assistant Professor, Department of BCom and MCom, and Ms. Nitya, Learning and Development Advisor, Downer Rail, Australia, for their effective effort put forward towards this event. I would like to extend our sincere thanks to faculty members and students from various institutions and universities, faculty members of our own institution, research scholars, and industrial experts who have joined and graced the today's session. Last but not the least, I would like to thank the faculty friends of my own department and also the students coordinator from BCom and MCom for their valuable support. Thank you, friends. Once again, I would like to thank one and all who made today's session a grand success. Thank you all.
Thank you, Kavipriya ma'am. Participants, you can fill the feedback link and you will be receiving the certificates within a week. Thank you all once again.
Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone.
Ma'am's voice is not clear. Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks. Bye-bye.